Commander Jake Morrison rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the computer screen in front of him. The communications center at Luna Base was quiet tonight, with only the soft humming of machines breaking the silence. For the past 6 hours, he had been listening to space signals from faraway places. Most of them were just noise from stars or old messages that meant nothing important. But this message was different. Jake played the recording again. The voice was strange and broken, speaking in a language that sounded familiar but wrong at the same time. He had heard something like this before many years ago when he was just a young officer. Back then, Earth had made contact with a peaceful alien race called the Zephyrians. They lived on planets far from Earth and had visited once, 50 years ago. The message crackled through the speakers again. Jake could make out a few words, but most of it was damaged by the long journey through space. He needed help to understand what these aliens were trying to tell him. Jake picked up his phone and called Dr. Lisa Carter. She was sleeping in her quarters on the other side of the moon base, but this could not wait until morning. Lisa was the best person on Earth at understanding alien languages. She had spent her whole life studying how different species talked to each other. "Lisa, I need you in the communication center right now," Jake said when she answered. "We have a message from the Zephyrians and it sounds urgent." 20 minutes later, Lisa walked into the room wearing her lab coat over pajamas. Her gray hair was messy, but her eyes were sharp and focused. She had worked on alien messages before, and she knew that urgent calls in the middle of the night usually meant trouble. "Play it for me," she said, sitting down at the computer next to Jake. The broken voice filled the room again. Lisa listened carefully, her fingers moving across the keyboard as she tried to clean up the signal. Slowly, the words became clearer. "The hegemony comes. They harvest worlds. Earth must prepare. Remember our words from before." Lisa and Jake looked at each other with worried faces. The hegemony was not a word they knew, but harvest worlds sounded very bad. And what did the Zephyrians mean by remember our words from before? Lisa worked for 3 more hours, using her computers to fix the damaged parts of the message. As the sun rose over the gray surface of the moon, she finally had a complete translation. The message was from Captain Zeph Ka, the same Zephyrian who had visited Earth 50 years ago. His voice was older now and filled with fear. He told them that a powerful enemy called the Galactic Hegemony was moving through space, destroying every planet they found. They took all the resources from each world and killed or enslaved everyone who lived there. "We tried to warn you before," the message said. "When we visited your Earth long ago, we told your leaders about the great danger that was coming, but your people did not believe us. They thought we were talking about problems that were too far away to matter. Now the hegemony has destroyed our worlds. We are the last of our people, hiding in space. They are coming for Earth next." Jake felt cold fear in his stomach. He remembered reading old reports about the Zephyrian visit 50 years ago. The alien captain had mentioned some kind of threat, but the Earth government had treated it like distant politics that did not concern them. Nobody had taken the warning seriously. Lisa continued reading the translation. "We have learned much about the enemy while running from them. They have over 2,000 ships, all bigger and stronger than anything we have ever seen. They have weapons that can break apart planets. They have conquered 17 different worlds in our part of the galaxy. Earth has maybe 3 months before they arrive in your solar system." The message ended with coordinates showing where the hegemony fleet was located and which direction they were traveling. Lisa checked the numbers twice to make sure they were correct. The enemy was real. They were huge, and they were coming straight toward Earth. Jake immediately called Admiral Peter Collins, the head of Earth's Space Defense Forces. The Admiral was not happy about being woken up early, but his mood changed quickly when Jake explained what they had found. "Send me everything right now," Admiral Collins said. "I'm calling an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. We need every military leader on Earth to hear this." While Jake sent the files to Earth, Lisa kept working on the message. She found more information hidden in the signal that took time to decode. The Zephyrians had not just sent a warning. They had also included detailed information about the hegemony's ships, weapons, and fighting methods. It was like a military report written by someone who had watched the enemy destroy world after world. "Jake, look at this," Lisa said, pointing at her screen. The Zephyrians didn't just run away when the hegemony attacked them. They studied the enemy. They learned about their weaknesses. They figured out how the hegemony fights and what kinds of mistakes they make. Jake read over her shoulder. The information was incredible. The Zephyrians had discovered that the hegemony always attacked the same way. First, they would surround a planet with their biggest ships. Then they would send smaller ships to destroy all the defenses in space around the world. Finally, they would land ground forces to take control of the surface. The hegemony was very good at this plan because it had worked every time. But they never changed their methods. They always did the same thing because they had never needed to do anything different. "There's more," Lisa said, scrolling down through the data. The Zephyrians found out that the hegemony ships have weak points in their energy shields. They also discovered that the enemy has trouble fighting in certain types of space environments, like asteroid fields or around gas giant planets. Jake felt a small spark of hope. This was not just a warning about an impossible enemy. This was intelligence information that could help Earth fight back. Hours later, Jake and Lisa were sitting in a video conference with military leaders from all over Earth and its colonies. Admiral Collins had gathered everyone who mattered in Earth's defense forces. The room was full of serious faces as Jake played the Zephyrian message and Lisa explained what it all meant. General Susan Hayes, who commanded Earth's ground forces, was the first to speak. "So we ignored their warning 50 years ago and now we're paying the price. The question is, what do we do now?" asked Captain Ryan Bell, who was in charge of the Titan Fortress defense station near Saturn. "We have 3 months to prepare for an enemy that has never been defeated." Admiral Collins looked around the room at all the worried faces on the video screens. "We start by admitting that we made a mistake 50 years ago. We should have listened to the Zephyrians when they tried to warn us. But we can't change the past. We can only prepare for what's coming." Dr. Lisa Carter raised her hand. "There's something else you all need to know. This message didn't just come from the Zephyrians. I've been checking our old files and we've received similar warnings from other alien species over the years. We just never put them together to see the pattern." She brought up more files on the main screen. The Catharan refugees who came to Earth 20 years ago, the Veltar traders who stopped visiting us 10 years ago, even the Nexus research station that went silent 5 years ago. They were all trying to tell us about the same threat. The room went quiet as everyone realized what this meant. Earth had not just ignored one warning. They had ignored many warnings from different alien species, all trying to tell them about the same terrible enemy that was now heading their way. Jake looked at the faces on the screen and saw determination replacing fear. Humanity had made a mistake by not listening before, but they were listening now. And unlike all the other worlds that the hegemony had conquered, Earth had something those other planets did not have. They had been warned, and this time, they were going to be ready. General Susan Hayes stood in the main command center on Earth, looking at dozens of screens showing activity all across the solar system. It had been 1 week since they received the Zephyrian warning, and panic was starting to spread among Earth's population. News reports talked about the coming invasion and people were scared. But Susan was not panicking. She had been a soldier for 30 years and had learned that fear only made things worse. Instead of being afraid, she was using every minute to prepare Earth's defenses. What she was discovering surprised her more each day. The problem was not that Earth was weak. The problem was that nobody had ever put together all the pieces of information they already had. Captain Ryan Bell called her from Titan Fortress, the big defense station that protected the outer planets. His voice sounded excited instead of worried. "General Hayes, you need to see what we found in the old storage files," Ryan said. "Remember those Catharan refugees who came to Earth 20 years ago? The ones who said their planet was destroyed by some kind of galactic empire?" Susan remembered them well. About 50 Catharan aliens had arrived at Earth in damaged ships, asking for a place to live. They had told stories about a powerful enemy that conquered their world, but Earth's government had treated them like regular refugees. Nobody had connected their stories to the Zephyrian warnings. "What about them?" Susan asked. "They didn't just bring stories," Ryan said. "They brought technology, stealth systems, shield generators, weapon designs. Everything is sitting in our research facilities, and nobody ever realized what we had." Susan felt her heart beat faster. "Are you saying we have alien technology that could help us fight the hegemony?" "Not just from the Catharans," Ryan replied. "I've been checking records from all the alien species that came to Earth over the past 50 years. The Veltar traders gave us advanced metal alloys. The Nexus scientists shared energy storage systems. The Zephyrians left behind communication technology. We have pieces of advanced technology from 6 different alien civilizations." Susan immediately called Dr. Amy Rodriguez, Earth's best engineer. Amy worked at the research center in Brazil, where most alien technology was studied. If anyone could figure out how to use these alien gifts, it would be her. Amy arrived at the command center 2 hours later, carrying several data tablets and looking very excited. She had been working nonstop since Ryan's discovery, and what she found was amazing. "General, we're not starting from zero," Amy said, spreading her tablets across the table. "Every alien species that came to Earth was running from the same enemy. They all developed different solutions to fight the hegemony, but they never had a chance to work together. We can combine all their ideas." She showed Susan a design for a new type of defense system. The Catharans created stealth technology that can hide entire space stations. The Veltar developed armor that can absorb energy weapons. The Nexus scientists built power systems that can run both technologies at the same time. Susan studied the designs carefully. The alien refugees had not just brought warnings about the hegemony. They had brought the tools needed to fight them. Earth scientists had spent 20 years studying these technologies without understanding their real purpose. "How long will it take to build these defense systems?" Susan asked. "If we use every factory on Earth and all the colonies, we can have the first installations ready in 6 weeks," Amy replied. "But there's something else. Dr. Nick Thompson from the Military Academy has been studying the tactical information from the Zephyrian message. He thinks he knows why the hegemony has never been defeated." Dr. Nick Thompson joined them by video call from the Academy on Mars. He was a thin man with thick glasses who spent most of his time studying military history and strategy. But now he was studying something much more important. "Every civilization that fought the hegemony fought alone," Nick explained. "The Zephyrians fought by themselves. The Catharans fought by themselves. Each species used their own technology and their own tactics. The hegemony has centuries of experience fighting individual planets with limited resources." Susan began to understand what he meant. "But we're not alone." "Exactly," Nick said. "We have refugees from 6 different civilizations. We have their combined knowledge, their combined technology, and their combined hatred of the hegemony. The enemy has never faced anything like this before." Over the next few days, Susan traveled to colonies throughout the solar system to see the preparation efforts. What she found gave her more hope than she had felt since receiving the warning. On Mars, human engineers were working alongside Catharan refugees to build stealth generators that could hide entire moons. The Catharans had tears in their eyes as they worked, knowing they finally had a chance to strike back at the enemy that destroyed their world. On Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, Veltar technicians were teaching human workers how to create armor, plating that could protect Earth's ships from hegemony weapons. The Veltar had lost their families to the enemy, and now they worked 18 hours a day to make sure Earth would not suffer the same fate. In the asteroid belt, automated factories were building new types of weapons based on designs from the Nexus scientists. These weapons used principles that the hegemony had never encountered, because each alien species had developed them independently. But the most important discovery came from Dr. Lisa Carter, who was still working with the Zephyrian message. She had found hidden information in the signal that took weeks to decode properly. "Susan, the Zephyrians didn't just send us one message," Lisa explained during a video call. "They've been sending us information for months, maybe years. Our receivers weren't sensitive enough to detect the signals before, but now that we know what to look for, we can see everything." Lisa showed her dozens of files that had been hidden in background space noise. The Zephyrians had sent detailed maps of hegemony fleet movements, technical specifications for their ships, and even recordings of their communications. They've been watching the hegemony fleet as it traveled toward Earth, Lisa continued. We know exactly how many ships they have, what weapons they carry, and how they're organized. We also know their battle plans because the hegemony uses the same strategy every time. Susan felt a smile cross her face for the first time in weeks. The hegemony thought they were attacking another unprepared world with primitive technology. They had no idea that Earth had been warned by survivors from 17 conquered civilizations. Captain Ryan Bell reported more good news from Titan Fortress. General, we've been in contact with other refugee groups throughout this part of the galaxy. There are Zephyrian survivors hiding in 3 different star systems. Kitharan resistance fighters are operating near their old home world. Even some Nexus scientists escaped and are working on new weapons. What are you saying? Susan asked. I'm saying that when the hegemony attacks Earth, they won't just be fighting humans. They'll be fighting a coalition of every species they've ever wronged. And for the first time, all these species will be working together. Amy Rodriguez called with an update from the research facilities. General, we've had a breakthrough. By combining technologies from all 6 alien species, we've created something none of them could build alone. It's a defense network that can protect our entire solar system. She explained how the system would work. Stealth technology would hide weapons platforms throughout the solar system. Advanced sensors would detect enemy ships before they knew they were being watched. Powerful weapons would strike from unexpected directions using targeting systems that could predict hegemony tactics. The most important part is the communication network, Amy said. Using Zephyrian technology, we can coordinate the defense of multiple planets in real time. The hegemony has never faced an enemy that could respond this quickly to their attacks. Dr. Nick Thompson had more strategic insights. The hegemony's greatest weakness is their overconfidence. They've conquered so many worlds that they don't expect real resistance anymore. Their battle plans assume the enemy will be frightened and disorganized. But we won't be, Susan said. No, we won't. We'll be ready for them in ways they can't imagine, and we'll have help from allies they thought they had completely destroyed. As Susan looked at the reports coming in from across the solar system, she realized that something amazing was happening. Humanity was not just preparing to defend Earth. They were preparing to end the hegemony's reign of terror forever. The aliens who had tried to warn Earth 50 years ago were now working side by side with humans to build defenses that no single species could have created alone. Technologies that had been developed separately over centuries were finally being combined for the first time. Susan picked up her communicator and sent a message to Admiral Collins. Admiral, I don't think we're just going to survive this attack. I think we're going to win. High Commander Zalthar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking out at the stars through the huge viewing window. His ship was called the Eternal Conquest, and it was the largest vessel in the Galactic Hegemony fleet. Around him, 2,000 other ships moved through space in perfect formation, all heading toward the same target. Earth. Zalthar was not human, but he looked somewhat like one. He was taller and thinner, with gray skin and large black eyes. His species, the Valdori, had been conquering other worlds for over 1,000 years. They had built the galactic hegemony by destroying every civilization that stood in their way. He had personally commanded the conquest of 43 different planets. Each victory had been easy because the hegemony had perfected their methods over centuries of war. No species had ever been able to stop them. Commander, we are now 2 weeks away from the human solar system, reported Sub-Commander Vex, his second in command. Vex was younger than Zalthar, but just as confident. He had helped conquer 12 worlds and had never seen the hegemony lose a battle. Zalthar nodded and walked over to the tactical display in the center of the bridge. The holographic image showed their fleet approaching a small yellow star with several planets orbiting around it. The third planet from the star was Earth, home to the humans. Show me the intelligence report on this species, Zalthar commanded. Vex activated the display, and images of humans appeared in the air above them. The report had been prepared by hegemony scouts who had been watching Earth for several months, without being detected. The humans are a young species, Vex explained. They have only been traveling between planets for about 100 years. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. They have no energy shields on their ships, no planet-destroying weapons, and no experience fighting a real space war. Zalthar studied the images of human cities, human ships, and human military bases. Everything looked weak and unimpressive compared to what the hegemony possessed. What about their defenses, he asked. Very limited, Vex replied. They have some orbital defense platforms around their home world and a few military stations near their outer planets. Our scouts estimate that they have fewer than 500 ships that could be used for combat. Most of those ships are designed for exploration, not fighting. Zalthar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. 500 ships against 2,000. The humans would be destroyed before they could even organize a proper defense. Any evidence of alliance with other species? Zalthar asked. This was always an important question, because sometimes young civilizations tried to get help from their neighbors. None, Vex said confidently. The humans appear to be isolated. They have had contact with a few other species over the years, but nothing that suggests military cooperation. Our intelligence shows that they are facing this threat completely alone. This was exactly what Zalthar wanted to hear. Isolated species were always the easiest to conquer because they had no experience working with others and no outside help to rely on. Zalthar walked back to his command chair and sat down. The chair was made from metal taken from the first planet he had conquered, and it reminded him of all his victories. Soon he would add Earth to that list. Prepare the standard invasion protocol, he ordered. Sub-Commander Vex began entering commands into his control panel. The standard invasion protocol was a battle plan that the hegemony had used successfully for hundreds of years. It never failed, because it was designed to overwhelm any possible defense. The plan had 3 phases. First, the entire hegemony fleet would surround the target planet and destroy any defenses in space. This phase usually took only a few hours because most species had very few ships and weapons in orbit around their worlds. Second, smaller groups of ships would attack military targets on the planet's surface, while the main fleet prevented any escape attempts. This phase could take anywhere from 1 day to 1 week, depending on how hard the enemy fought back. Third, ground forces would land on the planet to establish control and begin harvesting all useful resources. This final phase could take months, but by then the battle was already over. The plan is ready, Commander, Vex reported. We will arrive at the edge of their solar system in 14 days. Our scouts report that the humans have not detected our approach. Zalthar was pleased but not surprised. The hegemony fleet used advanced stealth technology that made them invisible to primitive sensors. The humans would not know they were under attack until hegemony ships appeared right next to their planet. What about the planet's resources? Zalthar asked. This was always his favorite part of planning a new conquest. Vex brought up another display showing detailed information about Earth. Excellent prospects, Commander. The planet has large amounts of water, which is valuable for our industrial systems. The humans have built extensive mining operations that we can take over. Most importantly, the planet has a population of over 8 billion humans who can be processed for labor. The hegemony did not usually kill everyone on the planets they conquered. Dead people could not work in mines or factories. Instead, they kept the strongest individuals as slaves and eliminated the rest. It was more efficient than complete destruction. Any unusual characteristics we should be aware of? Zalthar asked. Sometimes primitive species had strange customs or technologies that could cause small problems during conquest. Nothing significant, Vex replied. The humans appear to be a typical young civilization. They fight among themselves frequently, which suggests they will not unite effectively against us. They have many different languages and governments, which means they cannot coordinate their defense quickly. Zalthar had conquered species like this many times before. Divided civilizations were always easier to defeat than united ones because they wasted time arguing with each other instead of fighting the real enemy. Over the next few days, Zalthar reviewed every aspect of the coming battle. He studied maps of the human solar system, examined reports about human military capabilities, and planned the deployment of his ships. Everything indicated that this would be another routine conquest. The hegemony had fought many species that were stronger than the humans. The Kithaeron Empire had possessed advanced stealth technology and powerful energy weapons, but they had still fallen in less than a month. The Zephyrian Republic had been able to predict hegemony tactics and had prepared sophisticated defenses, but they had been defeated in 6 weeks. If those advanced civilizations could not stop the hegemony, then primitive humans certainly could not. "Commander, we have received the latest scout reports," Vex announced one morning as they approached the human solar system. "What do they say?" Zalthar asked. "The humans are showing signs of panic. Their news broadcasts are talking about the coming invasion, and their military forces are moving to defensive positions. Some civilian populations are being evacuated from major cities." Zalthar nodded approvingly. This was exactly what always happened when a species realized they were about to be conquered. Fear made them act predictably, and predictable enemies were easy to defeat. "Any changes to their defenses?" he asked. "Minor improvements only," Vex replied. "They have activated additional orbital weapons platforms and moved some ships to new positions. Nothing that would significantly impact our battle plan." Zalthar was satisfied. The humans were doing exactly what the hegemony expected them to do. They were preparing to fight a conventional battle using conventional tactics, which meant they would lose in a conventional way. "Begin final preparations," Zalthar commanded. "In 10 days we will add another world to the hegemony." As the massive fleet continued moving toward Earth, Zalthar felt the familiar excitement that came before every conquest. He had done this so many times that he could predict exactly how the battle would unfold. The humans would try to fight bravely, but their weapons would be too weak and their ships too few. They would send desperate messages asking for help, but no help would come. They would attempt last-minute strategies, but those strategies would fail because the hegemony had seen them all before. Within 3 days of arriving at Earth, the battle would be over. Within a week, human civilization would be destroyed. Within a month, Earth would be another resource-producing world in the hegemony empire. Zalthar had never been wrong about these predictions. He did not expect the humans to be any different. From the 43 other species he had conquered, the High Commander settled back in his command chair and prepared to add humanity to his long list of defeated enemies. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the hidden command center deep inside one of Saturn's moons. Around him, dozens of screens showed the hegemony fleet as it entered the solar system. The enemy ships looked exactly like the Zephyrian intelligence. Reports had described them: massive, dark, and intimidating. But Jake was not intimidated. He was excited. For 3 months, humanity and their alien allies had worked together to prepare for this moment. Now it was time to see if their plan would work. "All stations report ready," announced Captain Ryan Bell from his position at Titan Fortress. But Titan Fortress was not what it appeared to be. The hegemony sensors would see a normal military base with standard weapons and shields. They would not see the hidden Kithaeron stealth generators that made the real defense systems invisible. "Hegemony, fleet is moving into standard attack formation," reported Dr. Lisa Carter from Earth. She was monitoring all enemy communications using Zephyrian technology that could understand their language in real time. "High Commander Zalthar is ordering his ships to surround our planet, just like the intelligence reports predicted." Jake smiled. The hegemony was doing exactly what the refugees had said they would do. After conquering so many worlds using the same tactics, they could not imagine any other way to fight. "General Hayes, are your people ready?" Jake asked. General Susan Hayes was coordinating the defense from a secret bunker on Mars. "All ground forces are in position," she replied. "But, more importantly, our hidden orbital platforms are fully charged and waiting." The hegemony could see Earth's obvious defenses: the military space stations, the orbital weapons platforms, and the small fleet of human warships. These visible defenses looked weak and poorly organized, exactly what the enemy expected from a primitive civilization. What the hegemony could not see were the real defenses. Hidden throughout the solar system were weapons platforms built into asteroids, stealth ships hiding behind moons, and energy weapons disguised as communication satellites. Every piece of this hidden network used technology from the alien refugees, who had been warning Earth for decades. "Enemy fleet is beginning their attack," reported Captain Ryan Bell. "They're targeting our visible defense platforms first, just like the battle plan said they would." Jake watched as hegemony ships opened fire on Earth's orbital defenses. The visible platforms exploded in bright flashes of light, just as they were supposed to. But these were not real defensive systems. They were decoys built to look important while hiding the actual weapons. High Commander Zalthar was watching from his command ship as his forces destroyed the human defenses. Jake could hear his communications thanks to Lisa's translation systems. "The humans are weaker than expected," Zalthar was telling his officers. "Their weapons cannot even damage our shields. This conquest will be completed ahead of schedule." "Phase 1 is complete," Jake announced to all the hidden defense stations. "Begin Phase 2. Suddenly, weapons that the hegemony had never seen before opened fire from positions they had never expected. Asteroid mining stations revealed themselves to be massive cannons. Communications satellites transformed into missile launchers. Even some of the moons around Jupiter began shooting energy beams at the enemy fleet. The hegemony ships were caught completely by surprise. Their formation, which was designed to attack a planet, left them vulnerable to attacks from multiple directions. Ships that had been confidently advancing toward Earth suddenly found themselves under fire from behind, above, and below. "What is happening?" Zalthar's voice came through the communication system, sounding confused and angry. "Where are these weapons coming from?" "Our intelligence showed no defenses in those locations." Jake felt a moment of satisfaction. The hegemony was experiencing something they had never encountered before, a real surprise. But the enemy was not helpless. After a few minutes of confusion, hegemony commanders began changing their tactics. Their ships had strong shields and powerful weapons. Even though they were surprised, they could still fight back effectively. "They're adapting faster than we hoped," Captain Ryan Bell reported. "Some of our hidden platforms have been discovered and destroyed." "That's okay," Jake replied. "We knew we couldn't hide everything forever." "Amy, is the next phase ready?" Engineer Amy Rodriguez was coordinating from a secret facility on Europa. "All systems are active," she confirmed. "The Veltar armor modifications are working perfectly. The Nexus power systems are running at full capacity, and the Catharan stealth network is about to show the hegemony something they've never seen before." Jake activated his communicator to speak to all defense stations at once. "This is Commander Morrison. Begin Phase 3. Show them what happens when you fight a united galaxy instead of isolated worlds." Across the solar system, the real battle began. Ships that had been hiding behind Jupiter's moon suddenly appeared and attacked the hegemony fleet from the side. These were not just human ships. Zephyrian survivors flew alongside human pilots. Catharan refugees operated weapon systems they had designed specifically to fight hegemony technology. Veltar engineers had modified human ships with armor that could absorb enemy energy weapons. For the first time in centuries, the hegemony found themselves fighting enemies who knew all their secrets. "Impossible." Zalthar's voice came through. The communications again. "The Catharans were destroyed 20 years ago. The Zephyrians are extinct. How are they here?" Dr. Lisa Carter answered him, broadcasting on all hegemony frequencies so every enemy ship could hear. "You were warned about us, High Commander. Every species you conquered tried to warn their neighbors about what was coming. The difference is we listened." The battle spread throughout the solar system. Near Mars, human and Nexus ships worked together to destroy a group of hegemony cruisers. Around Saturn, Catharan stealth technology allowed entire squadrons to appear and disappear like ghosts, attacking and vanishing before the enemy could respond. But the most important battle was happening near Earth itself. General Susan Hayes had been waiting for this moment. As hegemony ground assault ships approached the planet, they encountered defenses that should not have existed. The orbital weapons platforms that had been destroyed earlier suddenly came back online, revealing themselves to be heavily armored decoys that had only pretended to be damaged. "All ground defense batteries fire at will," Susan commanded. Energy beams shot up from Earth's surface, striking hegemony ships that thought they were safe. These were not primitive human weapons. They were advanced systems built using knowledge from 6 different alien civilizations, all working together for the first time. High Commander Zalthar was trying to maintain control of his fleet, but everything was going wrong. His ships were designed to fight enemies that used familiar tactics and predictable strategies. But humanity was not fighting like any species the hegemony had conquered before. "Sir, we're receiving tactical support from multiple sources," reported Sub-Commander Vex, his voice filled with panic. "The enemy somehow knows our ship designs, our weapon capabilities, and our standard battle formations." "How is that possible?" Zalthar demanded. Jake Morrison answered him directly, broadcasting on the hegemony command frequency. "Because every civilization you destroyed left behind survivors, High Commander. And those survivors spent decades studying your methods, learning your weaknesses, and preparing for revenge. You taught us how to defeat you by defeating everyone else first." The tide of battle was turning. Hegemony ships that had expected an easy victory found themselves outmaneuvered, outgunned, and outthought by enemies who had been preparing for this fight for 50 years. Captain Ryan Bell reported, "From Titan Fortress, enemy fleet is beginning to break formation. Some ships are trying to retreat. Don't let them escape," Jake ordered. "If even one ship gets away, they'll warn the rest of the hegemony about what we can do." Ships from across the solar system moved to block the hegemony's escape routes. But these were not just human ships. Alien refugees who had lost their homes, their families, and their entire civilizations were finally getting their chance for justice. The galactic hegemony had made a fatal mistake. They had assumed that Earth would be like every other world they had conquered, alone, unprepared, and helpless. Instead, they had found something that had never existed before, a united coalition of every species they had ever wronged, working together with advanced technology and detailed knowledge of hegemony weaknesses. For the first time in 1,000 years, the hegemony was losing a battle. High Commander Zalthar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Half of his fleet was gone. Ships that had conquered 43 worlds were now floating debris in space around Earth. The humans and their allies were not just defending their planet, they were winning. "Sir, we must retreat," Sub-Commander Vex said urgently. "We have lost over 1,000 ships. This is not a battle we can win." Zalthar wanted to argue, but the numbers did not lie. In all his years of commanding hegemony forces, he had never lost more than a dozen ships in any single battle. Now he was watching his entire fleet being destroyed by enemies he had thought were primitive and helpless. "Begin withdrawal to the edge of the system," he ordered through gritted teeth. "Signal all remaining ships to fall back." But as hegemony ships tried to escape, they discovered that retreat was not going to be easy. Human and alien vessels appeared from hiding places throughout the solar system, blocking every possible escape route. The trap was complete. Commander Jake Morrison watched the enemy fleet's desperate attempts to flee. He felt no satisfaction in their panic, only determination to finish what the hegemony had started. "All ships, this is Morrison," he broadcast, on all frequencies. "The hegemony is trying to escape. Do not let them reach open space. If they get away, they will return with more ships and attack other innocent worlds." Captain Ryan Bell responded from his position near Saturn. "Understood, Commander. My squadron is moving to block the outer system exit points." General Susan Hayes added her voice from the Mars Command Center. "Ground-based long-range weapons are tracking all fleeing enemy vessels. None will escape this system." But Jake had a larger plan than just stopping the hegemony fleet from escaping. While the space battle continued, Dr. Lisa Carter had been working on something that could end the hegemony's threat permanently. "Jake, I've been monitoring hegemony communications throughout the battle," Lisa reported. "I found something important. This fleet is not operating alone. They have been sending regular reports back to hegemony headquarters, including the locations of their supply bases, reinforcement schedules, and command structures." Jake understood immediately what she meant. "Are you saying we can track down their main forces?" "Better than that," Lisa replied. "The Zephyrians included virus programs in their intelligence package. I can use the hegemony's own communication systems to send false orders to their other fleets. disrupting their operations throughout this entire region of the galaxy. This was the opportunity Jake had been hoping for. Instead of just defending Earth, they could strike back at the hegemony's entire military structure. "Do it," he ordered. "Send them false orders that will confuse their operations and protect other worlds." While Lisa worked on disrupting hegemony communications, the space battle reached its final phase. High Commander Zalthar's ship, the Eternal Conquest, was surrounded by allied vessels from 6 different species. Each ship represented a civilization that the hegemony had tried to destroy. Engineer Amy Rodriguez coordinated the final assault from her position on Europa. "All weapons charged and ready," she announced. "Kitharan stealth ships are in position. Veltar heavy cruisers are targeting their main engines. Nexus science vessels are jamming their communication systems. Zephyrian survivors are requesting permission to deliver the final attack," reported Captain Ryan Bell. "They want to be the ones who capture the hegemony commander." Jake considered this request. The Zephyrians had been the first to warn Earth about the coming threat. They had lost their entire civilization to hegemony aggression. If anyone deserved the honor of capturing Zalthar, it was them. "Permission granted," Jake said. "But take him alive. We need him to answer for what the hegemony has done to innocent worlds." The Zephyrian ship approached the damaged Eternal Conquest slowly and carefully. On board was Captain Zeph Ka, the same alien who had tried to warn Earth 50 years ago. He had spent decades hiding in space, watching his people die and planning for this moment of justice. Zalthar's ship was badly damaged and could no longer fight effectively. Most of his weapons were destroyed, his shields were failing, and his engines were offline. He had no choice but to surrender. "This is High Commander Zalthar of the Galactic Hegemony," came his voice over the communication system. "I am prepared to discuss terms of surrender." Captain Zefka responded in the hegemony's own language, his voice filled with years of pain and anger. "There are no terms, Zalthar. You will surrender unconditionally and face justice for the genocide of 17 civilizations." Dr. Nick Thompson, who had been coordinating strategy from the military academy on Mars, provided an update on the broader situation. "Commander Morrison, our intelligence indicates that this was the hegemony's primary conquest fleet in this region. By defeating them here, we have protected dozens of other worlds that were next on their target list." But the victory was even more significant than Nick realized. Dr. Lisa Carter had successfully used the hegemony's communication network to send false orders to their other forces throughout the galaxy. "Jake, the virus program worked better than we hoped," Lisa reported excitedly. "I've sent orders that will recall hegemony fleets from 3 different sectors, cancel attacks on 4 innocent worlds, and redirect their supply ships to empty regions of space. It will take them months to figure out what happened and reorganize their forces." General Susan Hayes added more good news. "We've also recovered intact hegemony technology from the ships we captured. Amy's engineering teams are already studying their weapons, shields, and faster-than-light travel systems. This technology will help us defend other worlds in the future." As the last hegemony ships surrendered or were destroyed, Jake realized that something historic had happened. For the first time in over 1,000 years, the galactic hegemony had been completely defeated, not just stopped or delayed, but actually beaten by enemies they had tried to destroy. But the victory belonged to more than just humanity. It belonged to every refugee who had warned Earth about the coming threat. It belonged to every alien species that had shared their technology and knowledge. It belonged to everyone who had refused to give up hope even after losing their home worlds. Captain Zefka's voice came over the communication system as he took High Commander Zalthar into custody. "For the Zephyrian Republic, the Kitharan Empire, the Veltar Confederation, and all the other civilizations you destroyed, justice has finally come." Jake opened a channel to broadcast throughout the solar system. "This is Commander Morrison. To all ships and stations, the hegemony fleet has been defeated. Earth is safe. But more importantly, we have sent a message to every would-be conqueror in the galaxy. Civilizations that listen to warnings, that help refugees, and that work together cannot be easily defeated." Admiral Peter Collins, who had been coordinating The overall defense from Earth sent his congratulations. Outstanding work, everyone. But our job is not finished. We need to use this victory to build something better. Over the following days, as the solar system returned to peace, representatives from all the refugee civilizations met on Earth to discuss the future. They had proven that cooperation was stronger than conquest, but they needed to make sure this lesson was not forgotten. Amy Rodriguez presented plans for new technologies that combined the best innovations from all 6 species. We can build ships that are faster and stronger than anything the hegemony ever created, she explained. But we should use them to protect innocent worlds, not to conquer them. Dr. Nick Thompson proposed the creation of a new galactic alliance. Every civilization that values freedom and peace should work together. We can share technology, coordinate defenses, and make sure that warnings about future threats are always taken seriously. Jake looked around the meeting room at humans, Zephyrians, Catharans, Veltar, Nexus representatives, and others. They had started as separate species fleeing from a common enemy. Now they were partners building a better future. 50 years ago, you tried to warn us about the hegemony, Jake said to Captain Zefka. We didn't listen then, but we're listening now. What other threats should we be preparing for? Zefka smiled, showing that hope had returned to his species. There are others out there who prey on the weak and isolated, but they have never faced anything like what we have built here. Together, we are stronger than any enemy. As Earth began broadcasting messages of hope and cooperation to civilizations throughout the galaxy, Jake realized that the hegemony's defeat was not an ending. It was a beginning. Humanity had learned the most important lesson in the universe. Listen to those who try to warn you, help those who need refuge, and never fight alone when you can fight together. The galactic hegemony had targeted Earth expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened something new, a coalition of species that valued life, freedom, and cooperation over domination and fear, and that coalition was just getting started.